Imagine going to work every single day, and your job is to collect other people's pee. Not as a punishment, not as a joke, as a real respected tax-paying profession. In ancient Rome, this was an actual career. People built entire businesses around it. Some of them got rich, and one emperor built part of his empire's economy on it. Welcome to the strange, smelly, surprisingly genius world of the Roman urine trade. Let's rewind. Rome, over 2,000 years ago. No soap, no detergent, no washing machines. But Romans loved clean, bright white togas. White wasn't just a color, it was a status symbol. A dirty toga meant you were poor or lazy, or both. So how do you get fabric spotless? Without soap. The answer was sitting right under everyone's nose. Literally. Urine, when it breaks down, produces ammonia. And ammonia is a powerful natural cleaning agent. It cuts through grease, lifts stains, and brightens fabric. The Romans didn't know the chemistry, they just knew it worked, so they built an entire industry around it. These businesses were called fullones, laundries, and the people who ran them were called fullones. Their job, take dirty togas and tunics and make them white again using stale human urine. But here's the twist. Where do you get that much urine? You can't exactly ask everyone in Rome to save it up. So the fullones did something clever. They placed large clay pots on street corners across the city. Public urinals, basically. Anyone walking by could relieve themselves right into the pot. It was free, it was convenient, and it fed directly into the fabric cleaning business. People used them constantly. Workers on their way home, travelers passing through, even wealthy citizens who had no problem using a public pot on the street. And once those pots filled up, someone had to collect them. That was the job. Every day, urine collectors, often slaves or poor laborers, walked the streets hauling heavy jars of human waste back to the laundry. It was hot, it smelled unbearable, and it was physically exhausting. But it was steady, guaranteed work in a city where steady work was hard to find. At the Fullonica, the real process began. The collected urine was poured into large stone basins. Dirty clothing was tossed in on top. And then someone had to get in. Workers, again often the lowest paid in the city, climbed barefoot into the basins and stomped on the fabric for hours, trampling it back and forth in the urine mixture to work the ammonia deep into the fibers. Picture that, standing knee-deep in fermented human urine, treading clothes like you're stomping grapes for wine. Except instead of wine, it's a toga. After hours of stomping, the clothes were rinsed, stretched on wooden frames, and left to dry, often bleached even whiter using sulfur smoke. The final result, bright, spotless, high-status Roman clothing. Nobody wearing it ever thought twice about where that whiteness came from. But the story gets even stranger. Urine wasn't just for laundry. Romans also used it as a teeth-whitening agent. Some accounts describe people rinsing their mouths with it, or using urine-based tooth powders, because the ammonia broke down stains on teeth the same way it broke down stains on fabric. The wealthy in nearby regions like Spain reportedly imported Portuguese urine specifically because it was believed to be more potent. Let that sink in. People were importing premium urine across the sea for dental hygiene. Now here's where it gets political. By the 1st century AD, the urine trade had grown massive. Public pots were everywhere, the laundries were profitable, and the Roman government noticed. Emperor Vespasian decided this booming industry was untaxed potential income, so he did what governments have always done. He taxed it. A tax on collecting and using public urine. His own son Titus reportedly found this disgusting and confronted his father about it. Why put a tax on something so filthy? Vespasian's response became one of the most famous lines in Roman history. He held up a coin earned from the tax and asked his son whether the smell of the coin offended him. Titus said no, and Vespasian replied with a phrase that still gets quoted today, Pecunia non olet. Money doesn't smell. The public urinals themselves eventually became known as Vespasiani, named after him. In several European countries, public toilets are still informally called some version of this name today, centuries later, as a quiet historical echo of a tax on pee. So think about what this really tells us. An entire supply chain, collection, transport, processing, manual labor, retail product, and government taxation built on something we'd now consider one of the most disgusting substances imaginable. But to the Romans, it wasn't disgusting. It was resourceful. It solved a real problem with what was freely, endlessly available. No one in Rome saw a wasted resource. They saw an opportunity. But to the Romans, it wasn't disgusting. It was resourceful. It solved a real problem with what was freely, endlessly available. No one in Rome saw a wasted resource. They saw an opportunity. And maybe that's the real lesson buried in all of this. Disgust is not fixed. It's shaped by necessity, by culture, by what a society is willing to normalize in order to survive and thrive. What repulses us today kept an empire's clothing white 2,000 years ago. What seems unthinkable now was once just Tuesday's job. So the next time you complain about your job, remember there was a version of humanity that woke up, grabbed a jar, and went to go collect the city's urine. And somehow, that job outlasted the empire that created it, in the form of a name still stamped on toilets across Europe today. History doesn't just remember kings and wars. Sometimes it remembers the smell.